Joining me now is Zia Yusuf, who's the head of policy at Reform UK. Zia Yusuf, great to see you. I saw you, of course, on the night of the count Thursday night. You didn't win Caerphilly. You were down as favourites. What's gone wrong?
Well, it was disappointing not to win on the night, but it was a historic day for Reform and for Welsh politics. There was a historic realignment going on, Chris, in Welsh politics, a historic realignment in British politics. Who would have thought that the Labour Party and the Tory Party, the two grand old parties for 100 years, between them, got 13% of the vote. Reform delivered. Again, disappointed we didn't win, but we got almost 3 times as many votes as the Tories and Labour combined. As you just said, the Tories down to 2%. They are irrelevant in Wales, just as they're irrelevant in the rest of the country. Labour down to 11 points. And look, it's clear now that ahead of the Senate elections next May, Wales is going to be a straight-up battle between Plaid and Reform.
I asked Chris Philp, who is the Tory leader in Wales. He couldn't say over 6 times. Who's your leader in Wales?
We don't have one yet.
Well, why is that then? That's a real important point.
Well, it is. And one of the things that we are focused on is making sure a big part of why Reform exists is we take the view that the existing calibre of personnel across both of the two old parties is not acceptable. And therefore, we are working hard to ensure we have exceptional people. We're looking for those people right now. We did have an amazing candidate, Claire Powell, who worked incredibly hard, really proud of the candidate, of the campaign he fought. I think he will be in the Senate next year. Look, tactical voting clearly had a big impact.
A progressive stitch-up, as some were saying.
Yeah, clearly, but tactical voting will not, because of the different electoral system that happens in the Senate elections in May next year, tactical voting will really not be an issue. And actually, if you had looked without the tactical voting, it would have been 3 seats each if you were to sort of an analysis of that. So look, we are very proud of what's been achieved in Wales. Remember as well, last time round, Reform won 1.7% of the vote. We got 1.7 to 36%. So the momentum is with us.
It seems that there's anger with the two main parties. Yeah, and you're benefiting, as is Plaid.
Yeah, and credit to Plaid, they're surging too, but not as much as us, right? So their vote, I think off the top of my head, is about up 18 points on last time. Ours was up 34 points. So Reform still has more momentum than any other political party in this country. I'm very confident we'll have an outstanding set of elections in Wales next year.
We haven't reached peak Reform, as your rivals are always saying it's peak Reform.
Well, I remember supposedly extremely smart talking heads all over the place saying, you know, when I took over as chairman, I remember we just won 14% of the vote share, and we were told, well, Nigel Farage parties are capped at 14%, then they were capped at 20%, then they were capped at 25%, then they were capped at 30%. Now we're capped at 35%. Let's see. We're going to keep making our case to the British people. They are sick and tired of what the two old parties have done to this country, and they are looking and crying out for change.
OK, so whether they've finally caught this individual who was freed wrongly in Essex, Gabatu, your reaction to that, please?
Relieved that he's been apprehended. I'm not even going to say caught, because looking at the CCTV footage and by eyewitness accounts, he wasn't even trying to evade the police. In fact, when he came out, according to an eyewitness, very credible reports in the Telegraph, he was told to leave the prison. He tried going back in on a multitude of occasions. They gave him some money and told him to go to the station. I tweeted out yesterday that Britain's descent, the British state's descent into a Monty Python sketch is pretty much complete. I will say this too. My heart goes out to the victim and to the victim's family, and how anyone who has been the victim of sexual assault in this country can have any faith in this Labour government or the apparatus of state is beyond me. Shabana Mahmood has been totally MIA. I haven't seen or heard anything from her. David Lammy went on TV and just talked about how he was livid. Look, the reality is we have got a situation in this country where this is a man who should never have been in the country. We have open borders. He turned up uninvited via small boat on our beaches. Then he committed a horrendous sexual offence, and then he was released, quote unquote, accidentally. And I'll say this too,
so
Chris.
why do you say on that point accidentally? Because you said that yesterday on social media, and some thought you meant that they did it on purpose. It's obviously wrong to release him. It was a mistaken release, but that accidentally fuels maybe misreporting, drives anger about. Well, obviously, everyone's crossed, but it wasn't. It was by mistake this happened, right?
I chose my language very carefully, and it is accurate language. I'm merely reflecting. The word accidentally. The word accidentally is exactly what the state is currently saying. I'll say this too. I'm not aware, Chris, that anyone who's been jailed for tweets has been accidentally released from prison. They seem to have watertight prisons for them. And secondly, here's another really important point, the total lack of accountability for civil servants. So the governor of that prison that has made this catastrophic error, one of the most hideous errors I've seen in a very long time, is refusing to engage MPs on a one-to-one basis about this issue, saying that they will not engage MPs on a one-to-one basis. When was the last time we saw a civil servant presiding over a catastrophe like this actually face some consequences. Instead, what usually happens is they get promoted and end up in the Lords.
So what should happen? If you were in power, your party might be in power after 2029, what would you do with the issue of Chelmsford Prison? Who should be resigning? Whose head's on the block?
Hold on. Let's zoom out here. This man should never have been in the country, Chris. So the first thing is let's not treat the symptom. Let's secure our borders. Let's have Britain actually have some sovereignty. We need to do the things that the Tories did not do for 14 years. They insult the intelligence of everyone watching this programme when they talk about everything that needs to be done. They had 14 years. They didn't leave the ECHR. We need to do that. Then we need to derogate from every international treaty that would otherwise be used to frustrate deportations. We're going to do that too, including the 1951 Refugee Convention. Then we need to build enough detention capacity. We need to make sure that anybody who arrives in this country illegally, every single one without exception, is put into detention and deported. And not just them, actually. The people who are already here in this country
Zia
illegally
Yusuf,
must be deported.
you're the head of policy at Reform UK. That will take years and years and years. You haven't even got a single
That doesn't mean it's not worth doing. That does not mean it's not worth doing, Chris. You haven't got a single peer in the House of Lords. I mean, how will you get through that? That programme is exciting. It's almost a silver bullet, which they say can't happen. How will you do this? I will tell you this. In Nigel's first year, Nigel's Prime Ministership, if that is the result that the British people choose to deliver at the next general election, will be the most transformative legislative agenda, and a lot of that will happen in our first year. Mark my words, we are working on that. We know, of course, the House of Lords are going to frustrate us. It's largely a loyalty scheme.
You haven't got
it's the peers. Well, why is that? Because the House of Lords has become a loyalty scheme for donors to the Labour Party and the Tory Party and failed civil servants. The very people, by the way, who wouldn't even want to leave the ECHR.
You haven't got a shadow cabinet. You're head of policy. You've got a leader.
We will, before we go into the next...
and a deputy leader. Who can I talk to about justice and home affairs and your party?
Chris, we are an insurgent start-up party. We're very proud of what we've achieved in a very short period of time. Of course, we've got work to do, and we're working really hard to do that. Prior to the next general election, again, you can hold me to this, we will put in front of the British people, Nigel will put in front of the British people, a shadow cabinet of the quality that has not been seen in this country in my lifetime.
That'll be the company bosses and others, experts in the field?
It'll be lots of different people. We've already guided around half of Nigel's cabinet. If number one, it'll be a smaller cabinet. No useful decision-making meeting has 25 people in.
So what, how big, 15, 12?
I'm not going to give you a precise number. It will be smaller than it is currently. And around half of those people we would expect to not be MPs. So some of them will be, some of them won't be. Okay. We will optimise for talent and people who have achieved great things in the real world, not people... You know, the only quality you need to be Chancellor of this country at the moment is to have carried an MP's bag around for a few years and maybe been in the complaints department at Halifax. This is a big reason why...
That's our system that we won for centuries, and you're saying it's broken.
It is absolutely broken, yeah.
Sarah Pochin, she, of course, is one of your 5 MPs. She said this, didn't she, in her phone in yesterday: "It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people. You're an Asian man. Would she like to apologise? Should she resign?"
And of course not. Look, Sarah is a lovely person. You've taken a very specific part of what she said. She did say that, and she has apologised because that was poorly phrased.
Is that right to apologise?
The point... I think it was, yes, because it's something, it's I think, giving people an incorrect impression of what she actually meant. If you actually listen to what was said, and I encourage people to actually listen to the whole segment, there was a caller, a chap named Stuart, a gentleman called Stuart, who basically was quite upset about the total lack of representation for some groups, specifically
and the
white
over-representation
people,
of other groups on
and
TV.
Over-representation of other groups, according to a Channel 4 report. And he actually talked about how this is having an impact in the real world. And no one ever talks about this, partly because people are worried about this sort of a backlash. There is no group that attains that has lower attainment educationally in this country than white working class boys. No mainstream politician talks about it. 14%, just 14% of white British boys on school meals, eligible for school meals, go to university. That's lower than any other demographic group. It's a disgrace. And also, every policy response, and the Tories were as bad at this as anyone, invariably makes the situation worse, discriminates against them directly. We have internship programs. We've had internship programs in this country for the civil service, for which white people are ineligible to apply. Inside our military, the RAF lost an employment. In fact, there was an internal inquiry, if you remember, in 2021, that condemned the RAF's recruitment processes as saying they literally discriminated against people based on the colour of their skin. Reform believed that nobody should be discriminated against because of the colour of their skin. We had recently the Bank of England doing another discriminatory recruitment programme. We've had our security services routinely running recruitment programmes to discriminate based on skin colour. Reform's
because
policy...
they're trying to lift representation of groups that not hired. So you think that shouldn't happen?
Well, the evidence is such that white working class boys are the ones being left behind more than any other group. I'm afraid no politician talks about it, in part because they worry about this backlash. And I'm telling you this, if we do not have a serious conversation about this, then I speak to not only those kids, I speak to their parents, I speak to their mums. I remember one who was in tears about the lack of opportunity for her kids. And what's the response? More discrimination against them. So, look, we've got to have a serious conversation about that.
On the grooming gangs issue, what's going on there? I mean, some are saying that, not you personally, but some critics, maybe the Tories, Reform and others, are using it as a political football when we're forgetting about the victims. All we should be caring about is getting them some justice.
Well, of course that's the case, but we need to put this whole inquiry into context. I mean, it was Keir Starmer who called the very idea of having a national inquiry as, quote, a far-right bandwagon.
But then he called one. He got the evidence from Louise Casey and then called one. He's doing the right thing, isn't he?
Well, so they've been dragged into this kicking and screaming. So he's now jumped on, quote, the far-right bandwagon himself.
Well, he said that term,
who doesn't believe in anything.
He said that term, didn't he? When I was asking him questions about that in January, he called it a far-right bandwagon.
I remember. He did a great job with that, and he's been exposed as the two-faced individual that he is. He's a man who doesn't believe in anything, and that's why he's currently the least unpopular.
He would say he finds the evidence and then takes action. He wouldn't say he's two-faced.
Well, I'm sorry. The idea that new evidence has come to light since your interview, Chris, is for the birds. We've had evidence now for decades in this country of not just the hideous crimes and the perpetrators still wandering around, but also cover-ups. You know, council workers involved in the cover-up and police officers not just involved in the cover-up, but tragically and sadly, some police officers, there's some evidence that they were actually involved in the institutional rape of these children. It is appalling, it's disgusting, and the fact that you now have 5 survivors who resigned from that inquiry, Jess Phillips's position is untenable because they have specifically cited her as one of the reasons why they're resigning. I don't see how her position is tenable.
So, if I can take you back to our top breaking story this hour, Justice Secretary David Lammy has said this. Hadesh Kabatu will be deported, he said. He said this. Kabatu has been arrested, is now in custody and will be deported. Thanks to the Met, Essex and British Transport Police for their swift and thorough work. I've already ordered the immediate strengthening of release checks and a full investigation into what went wrong. So I don't see an apology there, Zia Yusuf, simply that they're glad he's arrested, but no apology yet for the concern there would have been, of course, from the victims and the others too.
But why would he apologise? I mean, this Labour cabinet don't feel accountable for anything that happens in this country. I mean, how many times has Keir Starmer described as, quote, appalling actions that have happened on his watch? They refuse to take any accountability. Let's see if even this guy is going to get deported. I would not take that as a given whatsoever. I'm sure as we speak, the human rights industrial complex are mobilising to try and keep this man in the country. I'll point this out too. Keir Starmer, when he was a barrister, built a career. He built a career when he was a barrister of trying to free men exactly like this. In some cases, actually, men who manifold numbers of people at a time. He built a career trying to stop such deportations. So you've got to remember all of these things, that this is a Labour cabinet that, I'm afraid, do not have the interests of British people.
Well, they follow the rules, don't they? They follow the rules that have been set by repeated governments, the Human Rights Act, the Labour government.
They're following rules.
But there's a point to that, isn't there? That we live by rules. Rules is what govern us. What you're going to do is blow the whole thing up and see where the chips fall. And that's alarming.
What we're saying is that the rules that that need to exist in this country need to exist for the benefit of British people, of British citizens, not for foreign citizens. What has happened now is that actually the system of English common law that served this great country brilliantly for centuries has now collapsed in favour of the supremacy of foreign courts, foreign judges that basically now mean that British people cannot have a border, let alone a secure border, can't even have a border. I mean, this man, as we speak, there are going to be people coming across the channel illegally. Nothing is being done to stop that from happening. That is beyond unacceptable. And the learned helplessness that now exists in this country amongst the political class, they don't seem to understand that Parliament is sovereign. That Parliament is absolutely capable of saying, enough of all of this. We are going to make laws in the House of Commons and inside Parliament for the British people.
Will you get a grip? I asked earlier of West Street and the Health Secretary, why can't you just get a grip and run this country properly? Things keep going repeatedly wrong. Last week's one of the worst weeks I can remember covering politics. I've been doing it for 20 years. Why should viewers, listeners, GB News viewers and listeners believe you when you say you can do any better?
Nigel has built a career over 30 years. People know what he stands for. He's been, you can go online, go and look on YouTube. He was making videos about going out into the channel on his YouTube channel.
He's never run anything, Zia Yusuf. He's existed in opposition.
Years ago.
He existed in opposition against things. He's a campaigner. What's the evidence he can do any better?
Well, number one, he is the leader of a party that has come from absolutely nowhere to be now, I would argue, in pole position in this country. He's built an amazing organisation there. I've seen firsthand the sort of talent he's able to attract. Okay. But let's also be clear. We need talent in this country, in the political class, but we also have to have a political leader who believes that laws in this country should be made for the betterment of the lives of British citizens. And I'm afraid we have not had that for decades.
We need to get there. I mean, I think everyone will say things are not working as well as they should do. Why do you think Labour are so challenged by it?
Because the entire cabinet, these are people who have achieved absolutely nothing inside the real world. And all they've ever done is be student politicians, come out, carry bags around for some MPs and be special advisors, be in opposition for 14 years.
You're a tech millionaire, extremely successful in your private life and your business, which is, of course, to be credited. But why are you good at running a country?
Well, I'm not proposing that I run the country, to be clear. But I'm proud of what I achieved in the private sector. I built a company from scratch. I sold it for a decent amount of money to an American bank. We've created hundreds of jobs, paid tens of millions of pounds in taxes. And I'll put, here's the other point, though. You look at the current Labour cabinet. What experience does Rachel Reeves have? Being someone who manages complaints at Halifax, I would not say is a good training to be a chancellor. Maybe it's good training for the complaints she has to receive now.
You do want to roll in Nigel Farage's cabinet, don't you?
Well, that'll be a decision for him to make. Okay. But, ultimately, the people, I will tell you this, we are speaking to exceptional people about serving in our cabinet. And one of the reasons why we need an insurgent party like Reform to do this is because the only way you actually get to become Prime Minister of this country for the two old parties is by becoming leader of that party. The only way you do that is buying off your most senior MPs with the highest officers of the land. That is not something Nigel has to do.